Good morning, everybody. Bear with bearindependent.com. Where do we go from here? I don't know on a macro scale. I really don't know. It's something that's been, I'm not going to say bothering me, but troubling, maybe, concerning me for a while. I have an idea on a micro scale, and if you'll just hang with me a minute, we'll talk about that in a moment. The world is a little screwy. It's probably the most screwy I've seen it in my lifetime. It's the most SHTF that I've seen, including Hurricane Katrina and 9/11, because those things felt a lot more localized. They didn't feel like global issues. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic and the changing of the guard in Washington, D.C. feel both macro and micro terrible. You know, and I'm just a man like y'all. I have been more engaged in politics over the last 12 to 18 months than ever before in my life. I don't like politics. I don't find it entertaining. I don't find it intellectually engaging. It grates me on a moral and ethical level. And I feel, underrepresented, misrepresented, not represented at all. And I think that's why so many people gravitated towards the previous administration, because they felt like, hey, there's finally somebody who gives a damn about me and gives a damn about the country. It's no longer business as usual. And I totally get it. Excuse me, I'm on a bumpy bridge right now. I totally get it. But we're back to business as usual for who knows how long. And for better or for worse, we are back to business as usual. I can't say that I love that, but at least we have some experience navigating that. There's a lot of fear out there, and I think that that's intentional. Fear is a very good motivator. It's a negative motivator, but it's a very good motivator for a lot of people. You can get people to do things that they want to do out of fear. I believe that's intentional. So in the macro, I'm frustrated because I don't know what the plan is to restore a representative republic in the United States of America. I don't believe that politically there's a way for us to achieve that, because as we've seen in the most recent elections, one half of the country feels underrepresented, misrepresented, or not represented at all. We also have, and have had for years, rule by executive authority. If one administration comes into power and can undo everything that was done by the previous administration with the stroke of a pen, we have a dictator, not a president, because the dictates of one man or one woman or 2.5 million unelected bureaucrats determine how the rest of us are going to live. I mean, think about it. I'm in rural nowhere, Oklahoma, and I've got to chew my nails and get my heart rate up because of an election, 2 elections in Georgia. Two representatives in Georgia are going to determine the outcome for the rest of the country for the next 4 years, maybe 8 years. This is the system, what I call the system. And I'm not a fan of it. I've never been a fan of it. I think it's so broken that it can't be fixed. I'm on record as having said that. And I think a lot of people resonated with that concept when it was given the moniker "Drain the Swamp," which, interestingly enough, is doctrinal in counterinsurgency. It's a method in counterinsurgency. So the choice of that name for that approach, I think, resonated with a lot of people. But here we are stuck in the macro. I don't know how to fix things on the macro. I'm open to a plan, any plan, to at least hear it. Doesn't mean I would agree with it or disagree with it or throw my weight behind it, which seems to be becoming more considerable these days. Back on the diet and exercise routine, because wow, do you even 2020 stress eat, bro? It turns out, as a matter of fact, I might have succumbed to that. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know a macro plan to return us to the future that is honorific of the past, if that makes sense. Whatever happens going next, the United States of America that we have is going to be different than the United States of America that we had. That's just a fact. Even if we make something that is honorific of our founding documents and our forefathers and our Judeo-Christian values, it will be different, whether that's good different or bad different, than what we had and what they had. So we have to understand that. History doesn't always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I believe Mark Twain said that. That puts us back in the micro. I've only got so many moves, y'all. I have been, for going on 3 years at this channel, documenting our move from a suburban North Texas, 1/3 of an acre micro homestead with chickens and meat rabbits and compost and gardens and meat birds and a small chicken tractor and fruit bushes and berry bushes and nut trees and raised beds, cutting firewood and rucking through my suburban neighborhood, having law enforcement engage with me, trying to figure out who the strange man with all the tattoos and the 70-pound rucksack is. Quick stepping through all the wonderful cul-de-sacs filled with McMansions to our move to rural Oklahoma from North Texas. Come out into the middle of nowhere on a piece of land that had become neglected and was lacking stewardship, and to begin the process of building a life in the middle of nowhere, documenting that, showing you that it can be done. Make no mistake, there is countless blood, sweat, tears, treasure, and my time, and the time of others spent in building up what we have now. It does not happen overnight. But it does happen if you commit yourself to it, if you decide, yeah, I'm going to become as independent from the system as possible. That's what this channel is about. It's about being as independent from the system as possible. And as the system goes through its death throes, it's going to become necessarily more authoritarian. We're seeing that now. And we're seeing under the guise of COVID-19 the need, air quote, for more authoritarian government to enact all these tyrannical edicts under the guise of public safety. And I don't like that for a lot of reasons. If I was to be completely honest, my quality of life has not been changed by that since the inception of 2020. Say from about February, March of 2020, my quality of life has not changed. Praise the Father. But the potential for it to change in a negative way has grown significantly for me. I know a lot of people have been severely negatively impacted by COVID-19 and the resulting governmental response to COVID-19. We, praise the Father, have not had that issue yet. But that could change. It illustrates the point, though, that population density matters. The more people you have around you, and by people around you, I mean if you're in an urban area or a suburban area, you're more likely to have to deal with overreaching government authority sooner, because it takes more government to run an area with more people, just as a baseline. But when you have less people in a given area, it takes less government. And those people in rural areas are more self-deterministic. They're more likely to be self-reliant and not require or court the involvement of governing bodies and authorities outside of themselves. So living in a red state surrounded by red states in the middle of nowhere, we haven't had to deal with much out here. Just generally speaking, issues arise in the population centers first and then move outward from there. So on the micro, I'm trying to stay relatively focused, although this isn't truck talk, which means I give myself certain liberties to wander all over the place with this conversation. On the micro, like I said, I've only got so many moves. We are growing our herds. We're in the middle of lambing season right now, and we have just been blessed with the number of baby sheep that we've had this year. We're building a barn specifically for the sheep and our cows. We've added cows to the homestead this year. And if you're on Patreon, you've already met the Zebu cattle. We've got a bull and 3 heifers. And we've got a lot of sheep. I think we've got 9 babies right now and a dominant ram, and then another ram, and then 13 or 15 ewes, and half of those ewes are still pregnant, so we've got about 7 more ewes to drop babies right now. And we've got all the chickens ever, still have 1,000 chickens. And our neighbors are strengthening their animal agriculture as well. We've got baby goats being born. We've got goats to the left of us, goats to the right of us. cattle on the front and the back of us, and chickens, and meat birds, and laying hens, and guinea hens. We've got 6 different garden plots in the neighborhood for a total of about 8,000 square foot of garden. And we will be erecting a 7,500 square foot hoop house this spring as well, greenhouse, for food production, as well as giving it another shot at row cropping. The soil that we have is nutrient depleted, and so we'll be doing yet another experiment on how to amend the soil and what to plant to take advantage of the nutrients that our soil does have, and also to put some nutrients back into the soil for food production. Because while food storage is incredibly important, the moment you start dipping into your food storage, if something catastrophic does happen, and that something catastrophic could be anywhere between a denial of service at your grocery store because you have the wrong political ideology, or you are convicted to not take a vaccine, to grid down scenario and the Panamanian paratroopers are landing in your neighbor's backyard, right, or whatever, right? So once you break into your food storage, you've started the clock. Food storage is only going to last for so long. You got to have a way to replace it, and that gets back to food production. Of course, we have what we call the militant farmer concept here. So it's not just food production and food storage, although that's a big part of it, and all the skills that go with that. We also have been training and growing our skills as a corpus, as a body, as a group of like-minded individuals. And there are circles within circles of those like-minded individuals. As far as defensive/offensive carbine, defensive pistol, long gun, commo and communications, medical, on and on and on. Convoy skills, which sounds like a throwaway, but it's not. If you've ever had to move a lot of vehicles with a lot of people from point A to point B in an organized fashion, you should practice when you do that. And we practice that all the time. Developing our protocols for that. And then also, man, it's a bumpy road. And then also reaching out to other like-minded individuals, other groups of like-minded individuals in our area, to strengthen our network locally and regionally. Because I don't have all the skills I'd like to have in myself. And we don't necessarily have all the skills that we would like to have in our mutual assistance group, but we might know somebody else in another mutual assistance group that does. That's a trauma surgeon. Cool. But what they lack is a really good mechanic, and we've got one of those. Cool. And one guy over here in this group is, granola eating hippie that knows everything there is to know about permaculture and regenerative agriculture. Awesome, because that person can grow food. And I say granola eating hippie in jest. So forth and so on. So on a micro level, like I said, I've only got so many moves, but I'm making them. We are continuing to do them to strengthen our position, to become more self-reliant and less reliant on the .gov and on the system as a whole. I mean, I don't have to regale you with the stats and details of the global supply chain and the food shortages that are already beginning to happen around the world, but it's real. So what does Pastor Joe say of Viking Preparedness? We get two main threats in SHTF without rule of law: starvation and people behaving badly. Militant farmer concept. We're going to behave as well as we can where we are at, because we're taking action now in the micro. I don't know how to fix the macro. Believe me, it's on my mind. I'd like to know how to. I'm thinking about how to. I don't know if it can be achieved or not. I'm talking with people who have ideas on how to fix the macro. But as of right now, I don't have a clear pathway forward on how we deal with an entrenched opponent with global capabilities who have been running the show for the last 150 years. And I must admit, as a man, as a human being, that frustrates me. Because I don't believe that we should just allow the United States of America to fall by the wayside, to become the United Socialist Soviet States of America, or whatever. But I also don't know what to do on the macro. Which brings us perhaps to the final point I would want to make on this video, clarify on this video. I'm going to stay on YouTube as long as I can. I must tell you that there are days, there are mornings where I don't want to be there. It's a battle. Y'all don't see what happens on the back end for me to some mornings have to fight my way into my own channel to be able to do what we do, because self-reliance with the political, ethical, and moral ideology and theology that I have is not a popular thing with the powers that be. For whatever reason, that makes me a thought criminal, that makes me dangerous, and it's not conducive for the big they, apparently, for me to be sharing my thoughts and feelings and ideas. But I'm going to continue to do that to the best of my ability here on this platform. We are on Rumble and on Vimeo and on Parler whenever that comes back, and on Patreon. Patreon is our backup currently. Yes, it's $1 a month or $10 a year to get started. Yes, it's behind a paywall. The reason for that is y'all, I've produced over 2,500 videos in the last 2.5 years. Do the math on that. That's about 2.5 videos per day. A lot of those videos live on Patreon. There are mountains of exclusive content on Patreon that have never seen the light of day on YouTube, simply because the subject matter is not conducive to living on YouTube. So all that stuff is there. So it's not simply a pay me $1 a month because I love me and you should love me too type of page. There's a lot of exclusive content there. There's more content on Patreon than there is on YouTube, and it's of a different subject matter necessarily. And so Patreon is our backup. I would also encourage y'all, if you ever see me disappear, check the website, bearindependent.com. There will always be updates there of what we have going on. And we will navigate. We will move forward however we see fit. Semper Gumby, improvise, adapt, overcome. Again, I have to admit that I have been mentally and emotionally taxed by 2020 and the elections. And for somebody who hates politics to have to, I think, for me, I felt that I had to stay abreast of what was going on politically because of the downstream ramifications of these political situations that we were finding ourselves in. Preparedness was very influenced by politics in 2020 and will be in 2021 and going forward. And one could make the argument that it always has been, and perhaps you're correct, but it feels like more so now than ever, preparedness and politics have gone hand in hand. But I don't necessarily have a daily appetite to be delving into the nonsense that is global geopolitics on a daily basis. It doesn't mean the brief is going away, because it's not. We may pivot a little bit on what we cover. We're going to see. Because my goal is always to bring actionable intelligence so that you can do a better job in your life of being prepared on the micro, so that if the macro falls apart, you're in a better position than you were had you not taken action. I say all the time here, action beats anxiety. It does. I'd also like to add that one of the things that I've always tried to do, and it has made me unpopular in the prepper circles, certain areas of the prepper circles, and certainly in the patriot movement at times, is I've always tried to be a rational thinker. Irrational thoughts create negative emotions, right? Basic psychology. You feel hurt, you feel that you've experienced an injustice, you're frustrated, or you're fearful. And when those things happen, you respond negatively, you take negative action. So if you have thoughts that are not founded in truth, those create the perception of, or the reality of, being hurt, suffering an injustice, being frustrated, or being fearful. And I'm telling you, I've been very frustrated during 2020, very frustrated. I mean, I have a wife and children whom I love. That's the whole reason I do this. I have a community whom I love. I have a church whom I love. I have the Bear Nation whom I love. And it frustrates me to see the world as we know it being set ablaze and trying to navigate the uncertainty while experiencing to a greater or lesser degree the burden of command over 110,000 people, of whom I've met maybe 1% of y'all and have enjoyed it. Bless y'all. I love meeting the Bear Nation. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know what to do on the macro yet. I have an idea of what to do on the micro, and so we're doing that. And I want to encourage y'all to do that because, again, action beats anxiety. Those negative thoughts come from, your negative feelings come from thoughts that are not founded in truth, irrational thoughts that create that experience of being hurt, of suffering an injustice, of being frustrated or being fearful. And those things, those four HIF, they call it, you're in a HIF: hurt, injustice, frustrated, fearful. And when you're in a HIF, you respond negatively with your actions and your emotions and your physiological state. You're pissed off, or you're sad, or you're depressed, or you're whatever. Which means that we got to start, our actions have to start in truth. And that's rational thinking. And it doesn't mean that what we're experiencing isn't real, that it doesn't really suck. Because it does. It is real, and it does suck. But we can deal with that. We've dealt with it thus far. We're going to continue to deal with it to the best of our ability. Humanity has endured from the dawn of time. We will continue to endure. And I would submit that it's those who are the most prepared and the most easily adapted and that have the most capability that do endure. And And that's what I'm trying to be about. So what comes next? I don't know. Not yet. For me in the micro, I just told you what we're doing. As far as our content strategy, just told you. As far as the macro, I don't know yet. Of course, I'm going to keep you posted when I figure it out. But I don't know yet. And to those that I've offended, I apologize. I'm just a man. Just a man trying to navigate like everybody else out here. To those that are new here, welcome. I appreciate you. Thank you. It helps us in the YouTube algorithm when you like, subscribe, and share. And I'm not going to get into all the algorithmic shenanigans that we are currently experiencing yet again as a channel, but suffice it to say, we are unloved by the algorithm. I never intend to offend anybody. And if I've hurt you, I apologize. What I'm trying to do here is prove personally that you can be as independent from the system as possible, and to use that in my personal micro to educate and to encourage and to edify y'all, the Bear Nation, in your personal micro, so that we can all operate from positions of strength, so that if we are to have a great nation again, it's a great nation that's built from the grassroots up upon great people, bottom up, not top down. The top is a mess. I don't know how to fix it, but I do know how to fix the bottom. I do know how to fix us. It's hard work. It's not going to get any easier, but nothing worth doing is easy. So I appreciate y'all hanging in there with us, supporting us in what we do. Yes, this is a long video, but I figured it was time that we had a truck talk for me to kind of get some stuff off my chest, clear my head a little bit, and engage with y'all. So I appreciate y'all, Bear Nation. I'll see y'all in the comments down below. Bless y'all. Shalom.